Yes, you are now listening to the sound of Sports Reports is Ordered. And tonight, I don't know about the Rock Boys, but we going to tell you who the winners are. We going to talk about some MVP because every week, all y'all do is switch quarterbacks. Ooh, Mr. Logical getting busy. We going to recap this week in the NFL. Who knew? We're already on week 17. Tomorrow night is the last Thursday night game of the season. Browns and Jets. NFL, do better and show us some respect.
Yeah, that should have been the October game.
Exactly. But yo, as always, I am accompanied by the one and only Mr. Logic.
Yeah.
I am 2-5.
I gave him that name. I gave him that name. Hooters, Colorado Springs, 2013. Let's go.
Yes, sir. Sports Reports is ordered. Let's get busy. Get it off my chest. Coming right up. So, as I said, we're coming down the home stretch of the NFL season. 2 weeks left before we get to the playoffs. There's some teams out here doing some questionable things. I am old school. I'm the type of believer of if you got a chance for the playoffs, you just play. So I don't know why Russell Wilson is on the bench. But I wanted to talk about another quarterback. One, Trevor Lawrence of Clemson fame. Jacksonville Jaguars started off the season 6-2, went over to England, beat Buffalo. Had a matter of fact, played back-to-back weeks in England. Hell of a vacation. Started off 6-2, and I guess that makes them 2-5 since, because they're 8-7 now. So I was thinking about them because last week me and Mr. Logical had a conversation, I believe it was off air, where I mentioned I would sit Trevor Lawrence if it was me, because we thought he was going to miss some time after the ankle injury Monday night against Cincinnati. I thought he was going to miss a few weeks off of that because that looked bad. He couldn't put any weight on it. He was being helped through the tunnel. So I thought he was going to miss some time then. He came back because he's never missed a game before, like even going back to high school and all, never missed a game. So they played Cleveland. He looked like shit. They proceeded to get mollywopped. I said, you know what? Maybe you sit him down again. Or maybe you have that conversation. Sit him down. So no, they roll him out. He gets a concussion. Gets into the concussion protocol. And I said, hey, you know what? Maybe you should sit Trevor Lawrence out. Because now as I look at these standings, the Colts, Texans, and Jaguars are all 8-7. The Colts have the Raiders and the Texans, who they've already beat. The Texans have the Titans and the Colts. Jacksonville, luckily, has Carolina and Tennessee. So my thought was sit Trevor Lawrence one of the last two games. If you take an L, you take an L. You're still in the same position that you would have been in either way, possibly. Now, if he doesn't play this week with the AC joint, things could happen. They could lose to Carolina. They could lose to Tennessee next week, depending on how he's feeling, how things are progressing. So what did you really gain by putting him out there injured to do what? You're tied for first already. Luckily for Jacksonville, they have the tiebreaker over the Colts because they beat them twice. So if it comes down to that, Jacksonville will get in. And they're showing highlights. I was about to say this man threw another touchdown. But but at this point, what did you gain? Because now you're tied for first place, and any loss might knock you out of the playoffs. Because looking at the wild card, if you don't win the division, Buffalo's sitting there with 6 losses. They have the Patriots this week. They win that game. And if Miami loses to Baltimore this weekend, Buffalo has a chance to win the division in week 18. So Buffalo's playing. The Steelers, they're 8-7 as well, going up to Seattle this weekend. We'll see how that goes.
Coached by Mike Tomlin.
Yeah, we'll see how that goes. Like I said, the Colts got the Raiders, who, yes, they just beat Kansas City, but let's not forget that, 2 weeks ago, they got shut out by Minnesota against Kansas City. They didn't score an offensive touchdown. So if I'm the Colts, I feel pretty good about that.
O'Connell didn't have a completion for 3 quarters.
After the first quarter, yeah. He went 9 for 21.
Yeah, didn't have a completion.
So from that standpoint, if I'm the Colts, I feel okay. I've beat the Texans already. Granted, it was at home. But the Texans are on a slide right now. C.J. Stroud missed the game, came back, and, the Texans got lit up by the Browns. Amari Cooper to the tune of 265 receiving yards. But what did you gain, Jacksonville? What did you gain? And if you don't make the playoffs, you have nobody to blame but yourself.
I mean, that's legit because you were on it. Like I said, I think we had that conversation off in our little pre-meeting. It's probably tough to make that call. It's tough because I think there's so much nuance to it. It was like you're the quarterback, captain, face the team, number 1 overall draft pick. If you can go, you go. I think we had the same conversation last year, probably just, before we had the show with Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts played a game, I think it was against Chicago, took a big hit, and then he sat the following week, the game against Dallas. Mm-hmm. They actually sat him.
Mm-hmm.
And they thought they were going to be able to sit him for like a little longer, thinking that they were going to be able to beat Dallas, having things locked up. But then he ended up coming back. I don't think it really affected him because they still ended up in the Super Bowl, and they were, all intents and purposes, a holding call away from forcing the field goal and getting the ball back with a couple of minutes left in the game. So I don't think it really held him back, but it was a situation where they did sit him and the team ended up giving up 40 points and Gardner Minshew had a couple of crazy turnovers. Right. So I think you have to factor that in.
If I remember correctly, they lost the game to the Saints too. In that same stretch, they lost to Dallas, and so he had to play the final game against the Giants to get the home field.
Yeah,
but the Giants sat their starters. So they
like this. Yeah. Terry Bradshaw said it: when you go to the big dance, you dance with who brung you.
That's right.
So if you're Doug Peterson, you're not trying to run it with a backup. You're not trying to run CJ Beathard out there. If Trevor Lawrence can go, he's going to go.
Well, this
you live and die with the results. Because what if you put Beathard out there and they lose, and then Lawrence comes out next week and he's like lights out, and people are thinking like, man, what if he would have played like this last week?
But see, but this is the thing. So my thought going into that was, you and I both thought he wasn't going to play that week against the Browns because of how bad the ankle injury looked.
But yeah, it looked like he was going to be out to September.
And you're talking
the way
about,
he reacted.
Right. And you're talking about going out there getting harassed by Myles Garrett, on a bum ankle in Cleveland, number 1 defense in the league, holding teams to 160 yards passing per game. I just thought that was the week of he'll come back next week, be ready to go, XYZ. Because like I said,
that's tough with the AFC because that's one of the tiebreakers.
But they were
your record against common opponents, AFC opponents. It's a tough tiebreaker. If they play the game against Minnesota or they play the game against like Arizona, I can see it. But
this is the thing though. They were up in the division and they had the tiebreakers. So you know what I mean. So I wasn't even concerned in the moment.
I think they lose with Beathard anyway. So I think that's probably why they roll Lawrence out there. It's like
they still lost. So what did they gain?
I'm right-handed. I'd rather lose throwing right hooks than jabs.
But that's my point though. What did they gain? And now he gets a concussion. Their next game
against the Ravens. Yeah.
Yeah. Then he comes out and they get killed by Tampa last week. So it's like, what did you gain? At this point, does Jacksonville even have confidence? Like, even if he does play, Like, is it just simply we're playing Carolina, or
Hey,
you know what I mean? Like,
If I'm Jacksonville, I think his name's Shad Khan or something like that.
yeah,
I'm calling this guy named Kellen out in Los Angeles and say, hey man, you want to come here and be offensive coordinator? Take it out of Dougie P's hand just to get a new voice in the headset because they have way too much talent
right,
offensively. I think
and defensively,
Evan Ingram's is at 98 receptions. So like you have a tight end as about to get 100 receptions. Your offense is pretty solid.
yeah.
You have
Calvin
Calvin
Ridley's
Ridley
back.
who keeps running backwards. Stay off of FanDuel. Like
They
this man
lost Christian
keeps running
Kirk.
backwards. And like you
Uh,
had the boy Zay Jones was out there with the knee brace on. But you have a really talented offense. You might just need to take that responsibility away from coach. But
what, what,
I don't think they're dead in the water this year. I
the
just think
key,
the 27-point comeback last year set the team up for and the fact that like realistically, if they blitzed Patrick Mahomes last year in the playoff game at Arrowhead, they win that game. They
right,
sat in zone and let him just pick him apart. I'm like, he's hobbled. I'm
right.
sending every fresh linebacker on the roster every play. Like, listen, give me the gunner off the punt team. Give me the what? I don't care. Like, I want you to run through the A gap or run through the B gap every play. I'm sending fresh bodies through that hole every play at Patrick because I'm like, I'm not gonna sit back in zone and let him hobbles. But I think that was the high that they got from the 27-point comeback. And then it was like, yo, we had Patrick Mahomes on the ropes. I'm like, yeah, you could have knocked him out if you would have sent some people through. But yeah,
Well,
probably
the
maybe
key.
should have sat him. But I figured like, yo, if you can go, go.
Well, I mean, but they're at a point now. I feel that if they lose either one of these games, they're out. Is how I feel right now,
Yeah, that's
because
probably the case.
it's hard for me to envision the Colts losing twice. It's hard for me. Like
They
the
did
Texans,
just lose a very abnormal game, and we'll get into the details and the
yeah,
minutia of
yeah,
that.
yeah. Like the Texans, and the Colts, one of them have to beat the other one. Or they could tie, I guess. But theoretically, one of them is going to take a loss to the other. So you eliminate one of them next week anyway. But it might depend which one. If like I said, if Buffalo wins out, they lock up a playoff spot regardless if they win the division or not. And you're just down to that one spot because Cleveland's in with a win.
Buffalo's had a crazy year.
I know,
It's a crazy year.
but Cleveland is in with a win tomorrow. They beat the Jets tomorrow, they're in.
And
And
just Baltimore's having a career year.
you know what's crazy? I don't know how you feel. We ain't making predictions tonight. I don't know how you feel about the game this weekend, but I think that Baltimore is going to beat Miami this weekend. But if Miami beats Baltimore, Cleveland can win the division next week. Even with the season that Baltimore's had,
Man,
Cleveland can win the division next week.
NFL scripted. If Cleveland goes out here and wins the division with Joe Flacco, who's doing the same thing I was doing 2 weeks ago,
right,
sitting around watching football, talking about it.
And see, and that's the crazy thing about it is if it works out, Cleveland could win the North, Buffalo could win the East. Like it's that crazy of a scenario right now that could happen. Looking at the NFC, for the time being, you got some teams fighting over there to get in. Dallas is pretty much in. Detroit clinched the division. Philly's in. San Francisco's in.
LA's grinding.
You got the Rams. You got the Seahawks. The Falcons aren't eliminated yet. The Saints aren't eliminated yet, but they pretty much are, unless they beat Tampa this weekend. They beat Tampa this weekend. They were, because right now both of us are like, wow, Tampa really pulled the wool over our eyes.
Tampa looks good.
But if
like
they go out and lose to
like
the
a real
Saints this
football team.
weekend, lose to the Saints this weekend, we got a mess in the NFC South.
More than a mess, and we'll start out when they were all 0-0.
Yeah, so Seattle and Pittsburgh is pretty much, for my intents and purposes, Pittsburgh and Seattle is an elimination game because Seattle's eight and
Losers
seven,
out.
but they have 2 losses to the Rams. So if the Rams keep winning, Seattle's out of luck. Trying to think who else did I say? Green Bay is still out there with a chance. They got to beat Minnesota on Monday night.
Jordan
So
Love playing like a seasoned vet.
yeah, so there it is. But that brings us to what is a MVP? Because we've been hearing all the things, and week to week, I feel like in the last month we've had 4 different front runners. Like it was Tua 1 week, then it was Brock Purdy. People forgot all about McCaffrey because he's not a quarterback. Then people started bringing up Josh Allen again.
They had
Everybody got
Dak. Don't
upset.
forget Dak 2
Dak
weeks
was
ago.
up
Dak
there.
was number 1. Dak was
And
number
now-
1 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, and now it's Lamar Jackson. So is Lamar Jackson your MVP? Like what is a MVP to Mr. Logical?
I mean, to me, based off of the way that the award has been handed out, I don't say earned in years past. I won't just dismiss the award, but the elements of the award, people winning the MVP. A lot of times it was, if we could think back, I think Adrian Peterson might have been the last non-quarterback to win it.
That was 2012.
But he had the ACL tear in the game against the Redskins, as they were called back then. I remember he had his ACL surgery New Year's Eve because he had a picture of him wearing the hat, and he had the all the accoutrement that comes along with being a New Year's Day,
right?
And then came back and ran for 8 yards shy of the NFL record. I don't know why his coach did not put him back in the game. I don't know how that message was communicated, because in the post-game interview, I believe it was Pam Oliver asked Adrian Peterson, "Did you know you were 8 yards short?" He's like, "Short of what?" She was like, "You were 8 yards short of the all-time record." He was like, "Really?" I'm like, how did no one on the Viking staff say, "Hey, put Adrian in and run Wildcat 4 times to get him this record?"
2 yards a pop.
Because they had the game. I think they had the game won, because I believe they won. Either they clinched the playoff game, that it was like they were like 10-6. I think they either clinched the playoff game or clinched the division, in that game. So the fact that he didn't know that's how close he was is just an indictment on the ridiculousness of the Vikings organization then. But most of the time, man, every year there's been a quarterback that's been outstanding, that set themselves apart, which makes it easy to give them an MVP. Peyton Manning, 48 touchdowns. Tom Brady, 50 touchdowns. Back-to-back for Aaron Rodgers, 40-plus touchdowns, less in single-digit interceptions. Patrick Mahomes, 50 touchdowns. Patrick Mahomes last year, 40-plus touchdowns, less than explosive wide receiver core, and they were like the number 1 seed. They were going to get the Arrowhead Invitational, as Nick Wright affectionately calls it. So I get that part. Lamar Jackson is starting to feel like this year more like they're leaning on the word value more, and he's earning his position akin to how Steve Nash on those Suns teams in the mid, like that early 2000s, 2006, 2007, that range, where he was just the architect of this fast pace, get a shot up in 7 to 8 seconds, or 16, 17 seconds left on the shot clock. He was the architect on the court for D'Antoni's offense. Lamar's kind of getting that. I'm not dismissing his season, but he's starting to get the MVP cred off of that kind of impact. They say, "Oh, wait, the way he impacts the game because of the threat of running, that's cool." But when you run, like, I still need you to get the yards and the touchdowns that equate to other guys, and we'll go through the stats when when we do our back and forth, like our blind reveals or whatever the case may be. But I personally wouldn't vote him MVP. I think he's very valuable to the team with the best record in the league. But I don't think, based off of how the award has been handed out, even including the year he won it, Russell Wilson was getting a lot of buzz. But when everything with dust all settled, Lamar had more passing touchdowns than every other quarterback in the league, and he was viewed as a running quarterback. So that puts you in upper echelon. So I can understand. Okay, yeah, that guy's MVP. But
I
this
got,
year, it's a little. It's not, I don't really feel the same way.
I got one problem with Lamar Jackson. Just one. He has too many times tried to impersonate Daniel Jones.
Elaborate.
6 games under 190 yards passing. And in some of those games, it wasn't as if he threw for, say, 180 and ran for 80. Like it would be he threw for 181 and ran for 35 yards. And like we were talking off air, I was looking at Jalen Hurts. No way, shape, or form do I think Jalen Hurts is the MVP. But when I was looking at the numbers, 20 touchdown passes, 15 interceptions. 15 rushing touchdowns. Lamar Jackson, 19 touchdown passes. So I'm like, okay, you got to give me something. Like if you're not doing the 35 touchdown pass thing, you got to have some rushing touchdowns to go along with that. He's got 5. And that's where for me, MVP, I'm gonna take the easy way out here. MVP changes year to year. And
Correct.
I think that's the problem in the first place, is that all off season people talk about this is the MVP candidate, this is the Heisman candidate, like all this and all that. So when the season starts, your mind is already made up, and a lot of people aren't
Well,
going to shift unless
this year's been a lot of up and down. I think the problem is they have become, they being the media and the league, they have become accustomed to giving the award to a quarterback. So the last few weeks I've been talking on this show. What happened?
Miller Moss touchdown pass number 6 for the Trojans.
Luka Doncic, they were up by like 8. Then now Cleveland went up 6. Luka just hit a crazy step back 3, 17 seconds left.
Yeah, Craig Porter's that guy too. He's I saw him in summer league, and now that Garland's out, he's getting some burn and he's making the most of it.
Yeah. So like I said, I think people were just apt to give it to a quarterback. My last few weeks, I was trying to put Tyreek and Christian McCaffrey 1-2, however you want to slice it, because I thought Tyreek was going to play more.
Right.
Unfortunately, he's been like injured and hobbled and not been able to be explosive. He's not going to get anywhere near Calvin Johnson's record, which is, I mean, it is what it is. It's like, it's not something, those records are very tough to break. But because they want to give it to a quarterback, I think people just kind of rationalize and justify the numbers. Like, oh, yeah, but the threat of him running makes him so valuable to the offense. It's like, I understand that. I'm not saying that he's not valuable to the Baltimore Ravens. But if you looked at his numbers, and if I give you another guy, I'm going to give you another guy who has, Lamar right now has 3,357, 19 touchdowns, 7 picks. Leading his division. I'm going to give you another guy. 3,900, 3,984, 27 touchdowns, 10 picks. Won his division. What guy is that?
Hey, Purdy, is it?
Jared Goff.
Okay.
So Jared Goff has 600 more yards. They have about the same amount of wins. And if you think about the Detroit Lions offense, he's the engine that makes that go, the same way Lamar is.
Right.
but he's not getting anywhere near. He's not in the top 10 in MVP odds. So people would say Tua. So we'll look at Tua. You got Tua 42-14, but only 26 touchdowns and 10 picks, 4,200 yards. With that speed, we talk about Mostert, Hill, Waddle, Achane, Wilson.
Hell, Cedric Wilson.
It was like you have this
Barrios
in the slot, like you have speed everywhere. So with the 4,200 yards, I need 32, 33 touchdowns. The 10 picks is fine. I mean, it happens. Tip passes happen here and there. But I need 33, 34 touchdowns if you're going to say you're the MVP. Because I got a guy here. Check it out. I got a guy 3,500, 3,598, 26 touchdowns, 8 picks, leading his division. And we both had this team benching him, firing their coach, and they're going 4-13, 5-12.
Right.
Who was that?
Yeah, Mr. Mayfield.
Exactly. Getting zero buzz. But his numbers, keep it 100, are on par with Tua. I think Tua got catapulted with that 70-20 game against Denver. And then his numbers have probably been pedestrian and compared to everybody else.
Well, and I told you, I've been telling you for the last few weeks that, the Monday night game where Tyreek got hurt against Tennessee, Miami didn't even score an offensive touchdown until the fourth quarter of that game against Tennessee.
And that was on the short field.
And then this week against Dallas, once Waddle got hurt, like their offense just stopped. And I felt just, I'm not Ron, Jaworski or anything like that, but I saw 2 or 3 touchdowns where he missed Tyreek. Where Tyreek was open, or you just throw the ball anyway because he's Tyreek and he walks into the end zone. And so Tua, I feel, is having a great season that I don't want to take anything away from him, but I don't necessarily view him as spectacular.
Because of the position that he plays, he got catapulted into this level. And I think that's a lot for most of the players. So if you went to the top, like Brock Purdy is number 1. And hold on, watching Luka dance with the ball, run out of time. You better shoot it. Up. No good. Ball game over. Cleveland wins 113-110.
How about that?
They just double Luka with 8 seconds left at the, basically at half court. He ended up throwing it away. So Brock Purdy, and I firmly believe this. We talk about this. We talk about Nick Wright's biases and stuff like that in our pre-meeting. If Patrick Mahomes had the numbers and the rankings that Brock Purdy had with the Chiefs, then the argument for Patrick Mahomes being MVP would be demonstrative. He would be over the top. He would not allow anyone a word in edgewise to say that Patrick Mahomes was an MVP.
Right.
But Brock Purdy's numbers, like he's number 1 or 2 to include yards per attempt. He's number 1. Granted, he had a bad game, this week with the 4 interceptions. It happens. It's an ill time to have a bad game, but any conversation prior to Monday that didn't have him number 1 was probably like, okay, let me break it down. Like, let me find out why you feel he's not number 1. Because I thought that he had a shot to be number 1, but like I said, I don't feel like any of the quarterbacks really separated themselves to the point where it was definitive that this person was number 1. But his numbers just were on par, considering the history of the award. Christian McCaffrey, a lot of 49ers players and other players are, lobbying for him because they feel like he deserves more consideration because he's the one that he's the piece that if you stop him, then you make Purdy carry the game on his shoulders.
But you can't stop him. Yeah, so speaking of McCaffrey, I wrote him down here. He's averaging 5.4 yards per carry. He is the league rushing leader All right, let me ask you a question. I like to ask questions. He
Okay.
leads the league in rushing. How many yards more does he have than the second place person?
I'm gonna say somewhere in the range of 250 to 280.
338.
Okay.
338 yards ahead of the next rusher. He's third in rushing touchdowns. So if you want to knock Tua, you have to acknowledge that Mostert leads the league in rushing touchdowns.
18 of them.
And
Not
Jalen
giving
Hurts is
any
number two.
consideration.
And Jalen Hurts is number two. So,
And you know who has 13 rushing touchdowns?
What was that?
Josh Allen.
Josh Allen, the total touchdown leader, if I remember
Is
correctly.
40 touchdowns, correct?
Yes. So that's where, like, for me, when I look at that type of domination, considering what you just said, like you have to stop McCaffrey because the plan is to make Purdy beat you, but you can't even get there. Like, I don't even remember McCaffrey having a bad game. I mean, he's leading the league, by 338 yards. So, he probably hasn't had a bad game. But, but I wanted to go a different
I think
route.
he's only had one game this year where he didn't score a touchdown. He was on a streak of like 14, 15 games in a row.
Yeah, I think he broke it, actually. He broke it early in the season. But, yeah, so I wanted to switch the narrative, if you will, up a little because people piss me off a lot.
Ooh, let's hear it.
Because obviously we're talking about quarterbacks, and generally they are the leaders when it comes to MVP votes and conversation. But I hate when I hear stats that the defense doesn't get acknowledgement for. So let's look at Dallas for a second. Dak Prescott was the MVP leader up until about a week ago or so, or this week or whatever. And then the stat was Dallas had won their home games this season by 24.4, average of 24.4 points. And I'm like, so the defense ain't have nothing to do with that. You know what I mean? So when I look at, say, Bland broke the record for pick sixes in a season. When I look at Micah Parsons, 13 sacks on the season. Like, because when I think about this, like Michael Strahan broke the sack record. Brett Favre took the dive for him.
Absolutely.
But he wasn't in the MVP conversation, and so when I look at this, when I look at somebody like Myles Garrett, who is on the number one ranked defense, giving up only 160 yards passing per game.
Correct.
Cleveland is on their fourth starting quarterback this season. So why is his
name?
Not get just... Yeah, like I'm not saying that he got to win. Not saying that he got to win.
Simply because they have an award that should be viewed as prestigious as MVP in the Defensive Player of the Year award.
But they have an Offensive Player of the Year too.
So you got MVP, Offensive Player of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year.
Right.
Winning that award should be viewed as you earn one of the top three awards. MVP being one, Offensive Defensive Player of the Year can be considered 2A or 2B. So because you have an award that only your side of the ball can win,
right?
I don't think they give a lot of guys consideration for MVP. And I think Lawrence Taylor won MVP back in the day, but he won it when quarterbacks weren't throwing 60% completion.
Yeah.
They weren't throwing 40 times a game. They didn't have 67 to 70% completion rate. They didn't have an interception ratio of 38 to 8, 40 to 4. Just these gaudy numbers. It was running the ball and defense. Now with this narrative that it's a passing league, because it's not a passing league, it's a throwing league. Everybody throws the ball.
Right.
Everyone's not passing the ball. It's a difference. Right. It's a lot of people going out there with like Desmond Ridder throwing over 40 passes, Jake Browning throwing 40 passes, Nick Mullins throwing 40 passes. It's like this is not you're throwing the ball.
I'm glad you brought him up. Like, who Nick Mullins is?
What's the boy name?
He's me on Madden. Against Detroit this weekend, 411 yards, 2 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. Like, he's me on Madden. But I will see, to make my point about defense, I will see your Baker Mayfield, and I will raise you Antoine Winfield Jr.
Okay.
So here's some stats for you. So a couple years ago, I thought Derrick Henry should have won the MVP. I thought Gurley should have won the MVP. So I asked people, what does it take for a running back to win an MVP? And they said, oh, you got to get 2,000 yards, or you got to break the record, and like all this stuff. So they have all these prerequisites that the quarterbacks don't have. So Antoine Winfield this season, first defensive back since 1999, the year I graduated high school.
Shout out class 99.
The first defensive back with 5 sacks and 5 forced fumbles in a single season. Also, one of only 4 players since 2000 with 5 sacks, 5 takeaways, and 5 forced fumbles on the season. So he's got 110 tackles from the safety position, defended 12 passes this season, hit the quarterback 7 times, 5 sacks, 5 tackles for loss, 5 forced fumbles, and out of those 5 forced fumbles, he recovered 4 of them, and he has 3 interceptions. So, yes, Baker Mayfield and Mike Evans have found the chemistry. They found the H2O, but Antoine Winfield got a little bit of argon or neon in him. So that's where, like, for me, not saying he should
Someone
win.
has to be talking about, that's the thing. Someone has to be talking about Baker Mayfield in order for you to hear that stat nationally.
Right.
You'll hear the Myles Garrett stats because all of the turmoil surrounding the quarterback play in Cleveland. So when a quarterback play, you started DTR, you started PJ Walker, you started Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson in and of itself is just drama when you hit a name. And then you bring in Joe Flacco, who's essentially, he's an old head legend. And you gotta keep in mind, like, he's like an old mercenary legend kind of player. We remember Flacco. He played with Matt Ryan, the whole Baltimore Ravens. He had the greatest playoff run in the history of playoffs in the 2013 playoffs. It was like 11 touchdowns, 0 picks.
You want to know something else funny real quick?
So you have that whole conversation going. There's no conversation around Baker Mayfield.
You want to know something else funny real quick? So Flacco has played the last 4 games for Cleveland. In that stretch, he has more yards and touchdowns than anybody passing. In that 4-game stretch, nobody has more yards or touchdowns. Of course, he's thrown 7 interceptions as well. But it just goes to show you that throwing may not be the be-all, end-all. And Flacco, like, he hasn't played long enough this season to get MVP consideration, because we all thought once he came in, the Browns were done anyway. And here they are, like I said, with a chance to win the division next week. But another defensive player, I'm not going to make a big case for him, but I'm just going to say what I'm going to say. So, we talked about the Steelers and how they were something like 1-10 in games that TJ Watt didn't play. And as abysmal as their offense is right now, he leads the league in sacks. He scored some touchdowns this year as well. So I feel that if the Steelers somehow make the playoffs, his name should be discussed as well. Because they would only be in that conversation because of the defense stepping up, even though we know the numbers show you that the Steelers don't have a good defense. But he leads the league in sacks, and he would be the anchor of a team that came out of the dirt to make the playoffs. Like, if they make the playoffs with Mason Rudolph as their quarterback, I'm just saying.
I mean, like I said, I think I think the word valuable is where we get hung up. And
Uh,
we talked about this before. NBA playoffs, now they have Eastern Conference and Western Conference most valuable player.
yeah.
And we'll talk about this till we're blue in the face. Steph Curry not winning it the year Iguodala won it. It's like, oh, he was more valuable because he guarded LeBron, even though LeBron's stats were something crazy like 38, 8, and 8.
Yeah, but he
Some
held him to
bananas.
like 38% though.
38% shooting.
LeBron don't do that.
Yeah, he just shot a lot because everybody else was getting
Right.
claimed. It was
Right.
like it
And they were
wasn't
hurt.
Iguodala. It wasn't Iguodala clamping the other
Right.
four guys, and that's why
Right.
LeBron had to shoot it a lot. It was like LeBron just was like, I got to
He didn't have
defend.
anybody else.
Didn't have any, like Dellavedova literally was in. I think he went to the hospital
Yeah,
guarding
he had to
Steph.
go get an IV.
Yeah, he was dehydrated. So like they were just under the gun the whole time. But people use the word valuable, and it's like we all know it means most outstanding player. Like Anthony Davis won it. I'm pretty sure I brought this on the show. I think he had like 2 points, like 14 rebounds in their championship game when Kentucky won it. But he won MOP. The MVP is MOP. The Heisman is MOP. It's just we use the word valuable and then award it to the guy who's the most outstanding.
Right.
That's been the standard for the award. The word has been valuable. The recipient has been outstanding.
Mm-hmm.
So, because we can go, because I've heard this, because like I'm a stickler for like qualify and quantify your argument. I get in an argument with a compadre in my group chat because of his inability to qualify anything he says. He just says stuff, and like, what do these words mean? Like, how'd you get to this point? They're like, oh, if you take Peyton Manning off the coast, what do they look like? Well, if you take the two guards off of San Francisco, what does Christian McCaffrey's numbers look like? You need everybody involved. You suspend Kyle Shanahan for 2 games because he whistled at the referee or whatever. He bumped the referee. That's value. You get a guy traded, a guy gets hurt. Like there's every player matters. So it's not necessarily just like your presence equating to value. It's your presence equating to outstanding stats. Are you putting up outstanding numbers? That is
All
the
right.
award. We can
So
dance around all we want. The award is most outstanding player. It's not most valuable player.
so
Because
2
Trent
questions.
Williams' value to the San Francisco 49ers, how valuable is a 335-pound guy that can go in motion from the fullback position and lead block? Like that value can't be equated, can't be quantified. But you'll give it to Christian McCaffrey or Brock Purdy because they're going to get the touchdowns out of it.
So 2 questions.
All right.
One, who is your prediction to win MVP? 2, who is Mr. Logical's MVP? If you had the one and only vote, who's your MVP?
The one and only vote. So as the facts change, so does my opinion. Shout out to Michael Smith for saying that to me. If I had to, I would have to grow as a man and realize like even sometimes my own takes need to be rehashed. I'm giving a lot of consideration to Josh Allen. I don't want to say Brock Purdy because I don't think he's the cog in that engine. But Josh Allen, ever since I took him off because I felt like he gave away 2 or 3 games, do you want to be the Buffalo Bills' next opponent? And I know, like, shout out to Nick Wright. If you watch the podcast, that'd be dope. I'm gonna tag you in this. I know it feels as if we're getting caught up in prisoners of the moment, but the moment is now. We're December 27th. Shout out to my cousin Bub in the club, 42nd birthday, young cousin. So all born in 81. So today's his birthday. We're almost at the end of the year. It's about to be put up or shut up here in the next couple of weeks. In the past couple of weeks for Buffalo, they've already been in that. And we talked about it before. It's like certain teams have been in playoff mode since X date. They talked about that a lot of times when people make their predictions for the first round. It was like, yo, this team's been on playoff mode since the 15th of December. Stuff
Mhm.
like that. Like we've heard it before. I think Buffalo being in playoff mode for the last couple of weeks, dominating Dallas. Yes, they played around with the Chargers, and they probably should have done better. But that's part of the allure of Buffalo. So it's like I think I would give him a nod. I was talking to my son. I picked him up Tuesday morning from his friend's house. We talked about the Baltimore San Francisco game. I was like, I did not realize that this Baltimore defense
Mhm.
mimicked that 2000s Baltimore. I'm not saying like stat wise, they looked like they were playing 13 men, like where
Well,
they were.
I brought it up in our preview. Like I picked San Francisco to win, but I was saying that like Baltimore is one of those teams, one of the few teams in the league that can match up with them physically.
They looked like they overmatched them, and it felt as if I know you get some tip passes, you get picks, but sometimes when that blitz doesn't get home, most teams still get beat.
Mhm.
Baltimore didn't get beat.
Mhm.
And it just felt like guys were just coming through clean off the edge. Hamilton getting picks. Then you had Humphrey getting picks. You had Queen. I mean, you just had, there was so many guys that were just making prime time statement plays, even after Lamar got the safety that I told you about when he tripped over the referee
Right.
and got the intentional grounding. It was like, oh, this is going to be a situation where Baltimore's going to lose by 2 points, and that was going to be the whole story. And they're like, nah, man, we're going to win by 200 points.
Mhm. They
And
felt disrespected.
they felt like a wave of just like a flock of ravens, Edgar Allan Poe style, just overwhelming the 49ers. And it just looked, you can make this like, it's kind of hyperbole, hyperbolic, or whatever the case may be. Like they're the best team in the league. People make that statement every single week. We've
Right.
been doing this since week 2. They looked unbeatable. Because like I said, I don't think Lamar's MVP because I'm still based on the numbers. But with that defense, and then it seems like the calm that he brings to the offense, like the calm that I think that gives Harbaugh. I think Harbaugh is just like, I'm out here chilling. I got the best defense in the league, one of the best NFL cultures. Because I don't think there's ever been a time in Baltimore since they went from Cleveland to Baltimore. I don't think there's been a time to where you don't know what the culture in Baltimore is. You can look at a lot of teams and it's like the Saints used to have a real like
Mhm.
strong defensive culture, then it kind of fizzled. Remember when the Rams had the greatest show on turf? New England had this culture of no mistakes. Nobody
Mhm.
gets in, no information gets out. We don't make mistakes. We just win. And
Right.
you see chinks in that armor when they had to bring in players. When Tom Brady left, they had to bring in Cam Newton. You just have teams like Detroit. Detroit had this thing where like they couldn't get over the hump. They had the talent, they couldn't get over the hump. They bring
Mhm.
in a coach that is ready to bite kneecaps. Now they're getting over the hump. Baltimore's always been one of these teams that's like, this is what we do. We put on helmets, shoulder pads, we put on brass knuckles, and we come out
We
here
go
and
to war.
we punch people in the helmets like the
Yeah.
Warriors.
Yeah.
Warriors, come on, like that type. So they look dangerous. It's just that can in a playoff run, if they play Buffalo, can Stephon Diggs get open on that zero blitz coverage? Can Gabe Davis slip by Kyle Hamilton when he's supposed to be somewhere? Because he's not really that good of a cover safety. He's more of a bruiser.
Mhm.
Can Buffalo take advantage of that in the playoffs? I don't know if a team like Kansas City can, because I think they're so Baltimore's so physical. I think they could take away Tony Sky Moore, Nicole Hardman, Rasheed, Rice, the other tight ends they have lined up as wide receivers, and then maybe you get 6 or 7 completions for 63 yards of Travis Kelce and you lose that game. 24-10, and it's never close. So that's the difference. That, but even with that, I think it's a team thing with Baltimore. I think with Josh Allen's the one. Like I said, it's facts change, so does my opinion. And it looks like he would get my vote for MVP, just if they finish 11-6.
For me, I think Lamar Jackson wins it. The good news for Brock Purdy is that their final 2 games are against Washington and the Rams. So he has a chance to bounce back, if you will. Obviously, Tua makes a whole conversation if they go to Baltimore and win this weekend.
But this Tua is the I'm trying to think of the word. Is he in a position of where he has enough juice to catapult himself up to the top by simply just beating Baltimore?
I mean, he already leads the league in passing yards, so by the end of the season, he'll be close to 4,800 yards. So, he'll have a statistical argument. If they beat Baltimore, they have a chance to get the number 1 seed.
But that would make he would have to jump. So he would have to jump.
Well, you got to remember, he closes at Baltimore and against Buffalo. So he's got 2 opportunities against guys that you're putting ahead of him in the MVP race.
But that's the thing. That's the tough part, is like he has 2 tough games that probably won't look pretty.
Right.
Whereas I don't know what Buffalo's schedule is because we haven't done a predictor.
They got the Patriots and then they got Miami.
So Josh Allen might rock around like 230 yards passing, 2 TDs, and maybe like 60 or 70 yards rushing in the TD. That put him at 43 total touchdowns, 14 rushing, 29 passing.
Lamar has a chance to get ugly too because they close with Pittsburgh.
Yeah, but Lamar's numbers are based off of you're the star, you're the quarterback star of the best team in the league.
Right.
Whereas an 11-6 Josh Allen would have his team on would it be a 5-game win streak to end the season, or 4?
I think
maybe 5.
They were 6-6, yeah, so 5.
Yeah, so he'd be on a 5-game win streak with wins over Miami, Dallas, the dominance too.
Yeah.
And then he has the numbers to back it up. Considering, like I said, I don't think anybody's really giving themselves any gaps. If Christian McCaffrey was close to 2,000 yards, or say he was at like 1,600, 1,700 yards right now, then I think he'd have an edge. But the fact that we've seen a running back run for 1,395 before, it doesn't feel the same as a quarterback that's throwing for 29 to 32 touchdowns and rushing for 13 to 15 touchdowns.
And that's why I'm 2-5, because I would vote for Myles Garrett
for MVP.
Yep.
I wish there was an avenue for that, but like I said, just because he has defense, if he doesn't get Defensive Player of the Year,
well, he might not, because you got a dude that broke the pick 6 record. You know what I mean?
But he hasn't done that in a while. He hasn't gotten a pick 6 in a while. You know how it is with the.
I gave you the stat. Well, I mean, luckily for him, Winfield's a safety, so like he plays for Tampa, so he probably won't get the attention that he deserves. I guess Micah Parsons would be
a lot of the buzz.
And T.J. Watt leads the league in sacks. So there's T.J. Watt.
But
you got Micah Parsons.
Offensively are so inept that I don't even think the voters are watching their games to see what his real impact is, because the conversation after every Steelers game is it's normally a meme or some kind of snapshot in a group, and it'll be a quarterback that started 4 games this year, and he's thrown for 2 touchdowns in 3 of those games. And then it's Kenny Pickett, Mitch Trubisky, and they're both like 1 or 0. Like, so no matter how Pittsburgh does in their games, the conversation is around even the game where Kenny Pickett threw the game winning touchdown to Pickens.
Yeah.
And they put the camera on Matt Canada in the booth, and he wasn't cheering. And the story came out. I don't know how true it is, but the story came out that Matt Canada wasn't cheering because Kenny Pickett changed the play. I don't know if that's factual, but that's the conversation post Pittsburgh games. Not look what T.J. Watt did to
Maybe
keep
Kenny Pickett need to
Pittsburgh in the
change the
game.
play more.
They fired him. He needs to change them gloves.
Yeah, you do need to change the gloves. But hey, so back to this Baltimore San Francisco thing.
Shocking.
All
I'm
right.
not gonna front.
So now we got to do the thing, right? Like now that we have a podcast, we got to do the thing.
Let's hear it.
What's your concern level for the 49ers?
My concern level for the 49ers is this. They have Kyle Shanahan as their head coach. No, I'm not. I'm joshing. I don't have a concern level. I just think that they ran up against a team that just literally might be a couple of notches better than the rest of the competition. We talked about it all year as far as defenses. I believe personally the defenses, the drafting, the scouting, the coaching is putting defenses in a better position to defend some of these high-powered offenses. I think they're starting to get a lot of guys who probably would have been safeties. Put on 15 more pounds and play linebacker because I need you to bump these tight ends. So instead of being a 215 to 220 pound safety, get down to come up to 230, 235 and play the hybrid linebacker role. So I think you keep your speed. You can catch these guys in space. You can cover running backs out of the backfield and cover these tight ends. I just think Baltimore, the way they swarmed San Francisco, it was like we haven't seen any other team play like that all year. I know they lost to Cincinnati, but no one believes Cincinnati is anywhere on par with Baltimore defensively. But what Baltimore did to San Francisco was like they literally came at them from every angle.
Ain't that crazy? The 49ers are 1-3 against that division.
Maybe that greatest show on turf philosophy has run its course.
I just thought about that. I didn't even have that in my notes. Like it just came to me real quick. They lost to the Browns on the last second field goal that they missed.
They
lost to Cincinnati before the bye week when they had lost 3 in a row.
Lost to the Ravens.
And then they beat Pittsburgh opening game.
Yeah, they beat and we thought they were gonna be because like I said, I probably picked Pittsburgh.
I think I did too. I did too. That was like my upset of the week.
We had no idea Purdy was really gonna bounce back from the UCL because he just got into surgery, felt like he was coming back too early. I think we might have referenced RG3 with the ACL and trying to come back too early because you don't want to lose your spot.
Mm-hmm.
I just think honestly is that San Francisco just was once you get behind the chains, like they talk about it, like 1st and 10, you run a play, now it's 2nd and 14, the defense plays different. You get 6 yards on 1st down, and 2nd and 4, defense plays different. But if you lose 4 yards in the 2nd and 14,
you know what's even scarier though? I think what's scary for me, and I don't have a concern level for the 49ers. I mean, I didn't have them winning the Super Bowl anyway, but so I'm not concerned about them. But what I will say is going back to what you said earlier about how teams have to try to stop McCaffrey to get Purdy to beat him. McCaffrey went 14 rushes for 103 yards. So like Baltimore didn't stop him. Like, you know what I mean? Like Purdy just played bad.
I think what it was though is that the numbers always don't tell the tale.
Right.
That's why he only got 14 touches because it was back and forth early on. After the Lamar safety, I think the first half, I don't want to quote the score, I don't want to be wrong, but it was reasonable.
Well, I know it was 5-0 at some point, and then Baltimore scored.
Like the barrage came in the late in the second and then into the second half where McCaffrey got a lot of his touches early.
You're right. Right.
So he got his yards, he got his numbers,
And they took him out of
but
the game by making San Francisco play catch up.
and then Sam Darnold came in the game because Brock Purdy went to the tent.
4
He
picks.
threw a pick.
Yeah.
Yeah, he went to the tent with 4 picks. Sam Darnold came in. I think he led a touchdown drive. And obviously, because it's on TV, you got to be like, hey, you never know what could happen if you get blah,
Right.
blah, 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 blah.
Yeah,
And he
we
came
knew it
right
was
up.
over.
He came back out. Sam Darnold, he still got that crazy windup that he had at USC. He threw a pick. So Baltimore got 5 picks that game.
Mm-hmm.
So that's because they just were just around the ball. And
Yeah, Kyle
sometimes
Hamilton had 2 of them.
it might be a situation where you just, as the defense, say, all right, listen, we're gonna throw these haymakers all day. You can block some of them. You're gonna get 14 rushes for 102 yards. You might get a lead on us. You might get a nice drive, but when you think we're comfortable not blitzing, we're just gonna come downhill. We're gonna get the tip pass. We're gonna squeeze, this cover through the cover 3 that we're playing, and you're gonna throw right into it. And that's what ended up happening. Yeah, I don't think he played poorly. I think he just played. I think they just kind of figured out this is how we're gonna attack them.
So how do you feel if you're Dallas and you hold Miami to 5 field goals and you still lose?
You feel all right. You feel like the only reason you don't is because you're Dallas.
And because it's another road game. Like that was the thing.
If you're any other team, you'll look at it like, you know what? Change here. Like I said, I use my son's sports, between my oldest son when he played high school sports, and now my youngest son, he plays. I talked about the game where the refs called like 50 fouls in a 32-minute game. And he said in the locker room, they were pissed because they lost, but then they knew we get to play these guys again. And if we don't have the same referees, we know that guy's not going to shoot 26 free throws. Like one kid literally shot 26 free throws. He's like, we know we'll be able to defend these other 4 guys and let this other guy think he could do his thing. But he was getting bailed out a lot of foul calls. I think Dallas probably feels the same way. It was like, a penalty here, a holding here, a false start here. We go from 3rd and 4 to 3rd and 9, or we get off the field on 3rd down, but they call a simple hold. Like if you take out that and you take this out and you take this out, which is simple things to do. It's not like, oh, we need another guard or we need another offensive scheme. We just need to eliminate this mistake, this missed kick, this punt that should have gone here, and we would have downed them inside the 10.
They lost the game on the first possession. 7-minute drive, 15 plays, fumble at the 2. They lost the game right there. Yeah. But Saturday night, said, I want your thoughts. Don't give me your pick. I just want your thoughts. Saturday night, Dallas goes to go play a team that won their first division since 1993. That's going to be a hell of a game.
That was a good year. I think Around the Way Girl was still hot from LL Cool J.
I was 12 then, but yeah, they go to Detroit this week, and lo and behold, Detroit still has a chance for home field advantage.
It probably has a lot of stuff has to kind of pan out, but it could. I mean, if they hit the parlay,
they're 11-4. Philly's 11-4. Dallas 10-5. It's closer than you realize. I mean, I don't think it's going to happen just because Philly plays the Cardinals this week. So
Cardinals might be coming out there.
And then of course, they get their rematch with the G-Men next week. So theoretically, they should win. Whereas Detroit has this game against Dallas, and then they have Green Bay. Green Bay fighting for their playoff lives, and so
I like Detroit's year. We talked about it with the MVP odds. I don't know why Jared Goff didn't get more love.
I think there's a narrative on Jared Goff.
I mean, he went to the Super Bowl.
No, I know, but the Rams traded him for Stafford. They won the Super Bowl.
He got traded because he was trying to knock Sean McVay's wife down.
But
he didn't get traded because he was inept.
But the talk was they had to get Stafford or some kind of upgrade because Goff couldn't win you a Super Bowl.
But keeping the bean, Matthew Stafford couldn't win you a playoff game. So I don't believe that.
Bean, he threw that damn pick that Tart dropped.
Tart, should have had it. Game's over. Yeah, I think it was more of Jared tried to slide in my whiz. I gotta get rid of him. At least that's the story that we got on it. I don't know. I haven't seen any screenshots. So, like I said, I don't know exactly. I don't know if we know what the truth is, but if you're telling me that I had a guy that's won me a couple playoff games, he won a duel against Patrick Mahomes 54-51 in the Coliseum when you're not even the most popular team in your city, he gets you to the Super Bowl, and Sean McVay tries to out Belichick instead of just sticking to his game and doing his thing. But Jared Goff should get more consideration. I think even Stafford should be getting some consideration. You can't consider everybody. Obviously, you can't have a ballot of 50 names on it.
Well, I'm looking forward to hopefully we can get that playoff matchup.
LA Detroit.
Yeah,
it'll be in Detroit.
Yeah,
it'll be a swan song for Stafford. He'll throw the game away. He doesn't play well in Detroit in playoff games.
But evidence for that. But back to Dallas for a second. CeeDee Lamb. First quarter, 4 catches, 93 yards, and a touchdown. Didn't get another target until the fourth quarter.
I don't know how that happens.
I don't know how that happens either. He added 2 catches for 25 yards. So it looks good. 6 catches, 118 yards. But yeah, Miami definitely either took him out of the game or Dak just didn't take chances. Like I felt like Dallas played, I don't want to say scared. That's too strong of a word. But I think they were tentative because I think they just wanted to keep the ball out of Miami's hands. But they couldn't run the ball. They couldn't establish the run. Tony Pollard went, I believe, 12 carries for 38 yards. They couldn't establish the run, and it turned into Dak go be MVP. And I remember he went down the field, they scored, and the announcers, like right after the touchdown, they were like, Dak just had his MVP moment. And I was just like,
people are obsessed with it.
Yeah, and I'm like, is this the Heisman now?
Obsessed with it to the point where there's no discernible real analysis. It's just people come on TV to project the narrative. Because I want to bring this up recently. If you look at all the teams that have quality quarterbacks that are flat out struggling to score points, what do they not have? They don't have a running back that you're afraid of. Think back to the Minnesota Vikings, because the Minnesota Vikings, when they drafted Adrian Peterson in the top, I believe he's like 6th or 4th, but in the top 10 of that draft, they had Christian Ponder, Tavares Jackson as their quarterbacks. I think they slipped in a Brett Favre towards the latter.
They had, I think Joe Webb started the playoff game.
That was after Favre had gotten hurt because Webb. Okay. I think that's how it worked. I think when Favre broke the streak, Webb was playing, and then I think Favre had that numbness in his arm. He couldn't play. But Adrian Peterson was lined up against 8-man boxes. That game against San Diego where he broke and now still holds the NFL rushing record, 296 yards in the game. I think Christian Ponder was his quarterback, not a passing threat at all. So if you have a guy if you keep Zeke and you keep that 2-headed monster and you Or if you're Chicago, if you're New York and someone wants Saquon, they want to give you first and second round picks for him, maybe a third, and you're Tennessee and is like, listen, can we run a double headed monster of Saquon and Derrick Henry? Can we afford to pay them both? Do we pay Tannehill $8 million less and we get this guy and we figure out the books? Because that's the difference. Look at Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy's production is predicated on how well McCaffrey plays. Tua can make those play actions and all that other stuff work because Moster's a good running back, and Achan and Wilson are just speed on speed on speed. But yeah, if you look at a team like Kansas City, probably a generational talent at quarterback, can't run the ball.
Mm-hmm.
No one believes in a run.
Mm-hmm.
You look at Jacksonville with ATN. ATN is a pass catching back.
All right.
There's
So
no threat in him running up the gap. So I think a lot of these teams, if they ran with conviction, with real conviction from the running back position, they'd be fine. Dallas would be leading the division if they ran the ball better.
since you brought it up, if playoffs start today and it was Cleveland, Kansas City, you taking Cleveland?
Yeah.
Okay.
I would take Cleveland because Cleveland has at least two real receiving threats that can just, like, between Cooper and Njoku, and obviously Kareem Hunt is a running threat. I think that Kansas City, what kind of throw was that, Oklahoma State? That was a terrible throw.
Right after that beautiful catch 2 plays ago.
Yeah. I don't think if I'm Cleveland's defensive staff and I'm game planning against Kansas City,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not losing sleep.
Oh, they blitzing. You know who their coordinator is? Their defense coordinator is
Probably Greg Williams.
Jim Schwartz.
Oh, Schwartz. Okay, yeah. So Greg
Yeah,
Williams
yeah.
Jr.
Yeah, they coming. You know what I mean? So I think that we got to talk about that, though. Like we talked about it. The Raiders didn't complete a pass after the first quarter. You know, they didn't score an offensive touchdown. And they went into Arrowhead and won. Like, so I don't know if that did a service that'll have Antonio Pierce as the Raiders coach next season. Like, I feel like the Raiders are going to want a bigger name, but I feel that I brought this up a few weeks ago. Mr. Logical disagreed with me. You know, I thought the Raiders were playing their hearts out for Antonio Pierce. You know, so we'll see. You know, they play the Colts and then they get Denver with a little Jarrett Stidham action. So, you know, at worst, the Raiders finish 8-9. You know, possibly, you know, 7-10. They're not out of the playoff race just yet. So, like, I don't know, man. Like, I can't explain how Kansas City lost that game.
I can. There's no reason for anyone on the defensive staff of the other team to adjust.
Right.
If I keep 4 eyes on Kelsey,
Mm-hmm.
and I keep one safety over top for everybody else, that's it. Like, nobody else gets open. I watched that game. I don't believe Kadarius Toney was on the field much. I don't recall many formation with Sky Moore in it. I recall, like, they were running Blake Bell, the guy used to be a quarterback at
Oklahoma.
The guy Watson.
Teams have been able to focus on Kelsey, and nobody else can beat him.
But the thing about focus on Kelsey is that Kelsey works in the trenches, and the reason that Kelsey can get you the yards he was getting you in previous years was that somebody else was open. At least on these other, so Mahomes throws 40 passes a game. We'll say 22 to 24 of those passes there's a couple of guys open, and he could take his pick. So when he hits that backdrop, or he scrambles a little bit, you get a guy that uncovers. Tyreek uncovers. Juju last year with Juju, when he would uncover. Even MVS to some extent would like get deep. But now, because you don't have a threat underneath, you don't have to bring that safety down. You just leave him over the top. So you can't run that deep post because McCole Hardman, I don't know what he does for football. But he doesn't seem to be in the passing attack. Like I said, I didn't see Scott Moore. I don't remember Kadarius Toney. They had to play with Pacheco handing the ball off to Mahomes that got fumbled. Kadarius Toney, I believe he was a high school quarterback. That's a perfect play for him because he just as much as a threat to run. Matter of fact, I would have probably called that play for him to catch it and fake it.
They just don't trust him, I guess.
So it's like either they don't trust you in like in your game plan is like you don't have that many options. You know, if you're gonna do all this herky jerky stuff with the motion and the direct snaps, get it to these guys because Chris Broussard said it on First Things First all last week. He was like, "You're playing the Raiders this week." He was like, "I would have all the guys in the game that we've all been talking about are getting a lack of trust or lack of respect, and just feed them the ball." He was like, "You're playing against this rookie quarterback out of Las Vegas."
Interim head coach.
Interim head coach. You're playing at home. Just get these guys on the floor and inspire confidence. But they didn't do that. They tried some other stuff, and it didn't work out.
Right. And you know,
like I said, next week, you got Kansas City. Sorry, who was it again?
For the Chiefs?
Yeah, Kansas City has who next week?
The Chiefs are playing Cincinnati at home, and then they close at the Chargers. So they theoretically should win both of those, but I probably wouldn't be shocked if Cincinnati beat them.
It wouldn't shock me either because, like I said, I feel like their passing game, because Pacheco went out again last week. Pacheco went out again last week. Edwards-Helaire broke a couple tackles and got a couple of runs. They got inside the 5. But there's no separation. There's no threat of separation. Kelsey's the only guy that you expect to really uncover on his route. Guys uncover on the scramble because Mahomes is scrambling around and getting through stuff. Like Watson caught a touchdown when he was scrambling. But straight up off the line, running his route, Kelsey's the only guy that's going to be open. But if you double cover him, it's hard to beat double coverage when everyone knows the ball's potentially coming to you. When you're like potentially the read 90% of the time inside the red zone.
Right.
It's hard to beat that. Like you can't shake it because like is a dude just waiting. It's a guy guarding you, and then a dude is waiting for your shake move. Both of them are going to fall for it. Especially when it's like, listen, man, don't worry about any of those guys running routes. MVS is not a red zone threat. Rashid Rice, maybe, but he's still working, because he's a big body trying to figure, okay, how do I get open in these tight spaces? So you just use the back of the end zone as your extra defender, and you just double Kelsey.
And I want to take a moment to give a shout out to Robert, not Mo Salah, for getting this team to 6 wins. Blowing a 20-point lead in their home finale. I'm giving them credit. That team.
I'm not giving. They started Tim Boyle like 3 games. I'm not giving them any credit for that.
And they still won 6 games.
But that's the thing. You probably would. It wouldn't have been a struggle to get to 6 games if you.
Oh yes, it would have. Zach Wilson. How many games was Zach Wilson going to win? Like if he played every game this season, what was their record going to be?
He would have beat the Falcons.
Maybe.
I was at that game. He would have beat the Falcons.
Maybe.
They scored 13 points.
Hey, apparently Trevor Siemian was the answer.
Yo, he was awful. But even with that, Boyle was connecting on some deep throws, Zach Wilson beats the Falcons the same way he beat the Texans. I think that Robert Saleh, not Mo Salah, he, for lack of a better word, is lucky that Aaron Rodgers got hurt because I
I'm
don't know
just
if he's
trying to
I don't
figure
I
out.
don't know I don't know if he's that good of a coach.
I'm just trying to figure out why Washington didn't fire Rivera after the bye week, or during the bye week, and give Bieniemy a trial run. I'm also trying to figure out why it even matters to bench Sam Howell at this point.
Because they're all done. They're all done. You're about to be the Carolina Panthers 2.0. You
Saying
have
San
a new
Francisco and
ownership
Dallas
group.
coming up.
You have a new ownership group. You have a guy who has success. I believe he owns the 76ers.
He does. Mm-hmm.
And then he owns another professional team, or at least he's on ownership group of another professional team.
You got Magic.
Yeah, so and then you got Magic Johnson on it, so which makes no sense to me other than just he saw an investment
He
and
just had money.
he's a billionaire and he's part of it. But yeah, all of that's all getting stripped out. That's like, we all have a friend that likes to restore old cars.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Washington Commanders are gonna be that old car in your
Oh
friend's
yeah.
garage
So Mike
that
Tomlin
needs a
gonna
new
pull up.
fuel tank, that
Mike
needs this, that needs that, and it's gonna
Mike,
be in the garage for years.
Mike Tomlin gonna pull up talking about it's all about family. They talking about. I've been seeing all these rumors that the Steelers may look to trade him. So we'll see what happens. And I know you wanted to get to this. I'm gonna let you get to it.
All right.
What happened in Mile High the other night?
I mean, it's just a master class in who's a real coach, a real leader of men, a real man amongst men, a real leader. Sean Payton is not that guy.
Something about the
You
Western Kentucky quarterbacks.
listen, man. You put shout out to West Kentucky. You put Russell Wilson in New England with Bill Belichick telling him, "Just don't lose a game for us." Because Bill Belichick is famous for saying, "Don't tell me what a guy can't do. Tell me what he can do well, and I'll have him do that."
Well,
So
see,
if you
I
can't
was
rest the
talking to
passion,
somebody
but you
today.
can defend. Okay, cool. You're just going to be my linebacker. I don't put you in there on blitz downs.
I was talking to somebody today, and I was like, "Yo, Russell Wilson would be such a fit for the Patriots if they weren't about to rebuild, or like he would be such a great fit, even in like Pittsburgh, like from a personality standpoint,
Because I think Sean Payton is a Hollywood coach. I think he went out to Fox. I think they film in LA. I believe he sat down with these dinners with these people and he was eating this caviar from exotic farm in France and this lobster from Maine that was like organic. Like, I think he sat around with these execs. He started feeling himself. But when it comes down to it, he was a mediocre coach with the Hall of Fame quarterback. There's no other way to slice it. His record coming into this year was the same as Mike McCarthy, and Mike McCarthy 3 years in a row since coming to Dallas, and even his time, he had a couple of bad years in Green Bay, but his time in Dallas, people have been trying to run him off. He's at 12 wins, 10 wins.
Yeah.
Sean Payton
and going to get at least 11. They got Washington in one of these last two games.
And then Sean Payton's out here. Listen, I don't know. I'm not a confrontational person. I'm not like I can fight. Don't get it twisted. I got hands. You catch me in the streets, you might get knuckled up. But I understand the dynamic or whatever of like coach, player, and I understand that certain coaches are going to be demonstrative and they're going to bark on you. They're going to yell. I understand that. But I'm not a young pup. I'm like Russell Wilson's 33 something years old. Wife, couple of kids, career, Super Bowl ring, just
man done experienced life.
Man's lived a life.
Yeah.
So you need to stop flipping your headset up and barking at me in front of all these people on TV
Like I'm
because
Jarrett Stidham.
you like at some point Russell's got to get on the podium. Like, listen, yo, they brought this bum ass dude in here, and I'm sick of it. I'm sick of his arrogance. I'm sick of his attitude. Y'all paying him $20 million because what are they gonna do? Cut him? Cut me and pay me
See,
eighty
that's
five
why
million dollars.
Draymond Green would be the good. See, that's why Draymond Green would be a good football player because he would get
He
up
need
there and they would say, Coach Payton was upset about something like, like what was he telling you? And Draymond would say, I don't know what he said. He was about to get punched in his face.
yo Russell Wilson needs like an angry translator behind him. Like I said, that Key and Pill skit. That's what he needs because Sean Payton's acting out of pocket.
Yeah. Yeah, this man has gone nuts, embarrassing. But Denver gave that game away. Like it had nothing to do with Russell Wilson. Like I remember at one point, uh, New England went down and scored. Ensuing kickoff, they fumble it, and New England scoops it and runs it into the end zone. And Denver made a comeback, but that was basically the game. Bailey Zappi, of course, Hilltopper fame, gets them down the field. And shout out, speaking of shout outs, kids out there in America. Look, this word is overused in the Air Force every single day. But you have to be resilient. This kicker for the Patriots, Chad Ryland, 15 of 23 on the season. He had missed a field goal in that game, missed the extra point in that game, and he comes through from 53 with the game on the line. Bill Belichick just will not die. Robert Kraft is pissed because he wanted the number 2 pick since Chicago's going to have the number 1 through Carolina. Belichick is messing up all the plans, so he might get traded.
Absolutely. He's about to get his what's the boy named Lovey Smith on. But they told me, yeah, we're going to fire
they
this
beat
season.
Buffalo once this year.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to
watch out, Orchard Park. Watch out.
It could be tough. Like I said, I get it. I bang on Sean Payton mainly because I just don't like the way he handles like Bill Belichick. Bill Belichick will go to the podium and you ask him a question like, has Robert Kraft talked to you about your security and your future as the New England head coach? Now, you really asking me if my boss is going to fire me, and you ask me this on national TV, but he reacts, he's like, listen, we're on to Denver, or we're on to Kansas City, or we're on to the bye week, whatever the case may be. I think he handles it. But Sean Payton talked about, I called the play, we're not getting the plays in on time. If we have to wristband it, we'll wristband it. And it's like, you keep acting as if you're not part of these collapses, dog. Like
you're infallible.
You got one Super Bowl appearance ring off of an onside kick and a pick six, because sometimes Peyton Manning kind of falters in the big moments. Mm-hmm. That's it. You were 5-11 like 3 years in a row with Drew Brees as your starting quarterback and missed the playoffs a lot.
Throwing for 5,000 yards.
5,000 yards, 8,700 touchdowns, 50,000 slant routes to Michael Thomas. Like, you got Michael Thomas hurt by having him in the game because your ego got him hurt in that game against Tampa Bay. He didn't need to be in there. He didn't need to be running any plays. Ego got you suspended for a year because you were doing the bounty gate. Ego got you the record that you have, and your arrogance is costing you even more now. And I'm like, I don't know why people aren't calling him out on this even more. Like, I hope.
So who's more overrated? Who's more overrated, Sean Payton or John Gruden?
Sean Payton.
Okay. Because
Gruden, at least when he left the field and he was in a booth and he was doing like that pre-draft stuff. That pre-draft stuff with the quarterbacks, he had a like XY spider Z, or what it was, an X over spider Y banana, whatever that play is. He loved Andrew Luck. Like, he had that a likability to him. Sean Payton never had a likability to him because it's like, how you even get a job when you out here headhunting quarterbacks? and
Right.
paying your players. Like, how you out here disruptive in the safety of the game, but yet you get this job on TV?
Yeah, it doesn't make sense. But he is who he is. Denver stuck with him. So, they got the Walmart money, so it'll be all right.
Yeah,
Russell
when
will
they
probably
buy
be
him
out of
out,
there. Yeah, Russell will be out of there next year. I don't know where he's going to go because I was trying to think about it. You know, I don't see Pittsburgh bringing them in if they don't have Tomlin.
if they don't have Tomlin, if you don't have a coach that's over 10 years coaching,
Yeah, like I think you got that. Maybe the Raiders. But they got Garoppolo still. So
I don't think they'll make a move for an older guy. I think Garoppolo, if they can get him off the books, I think they will. I see the Raiders making a Devontae Adams trade to whomever
finally,
to move up to get like the quarterback of their
they should have
future.
did that. He should be gone already.
I
Like
mean,
the moment that Garoppolo was out, like whether he was injured or they decided to
the
bench
moment
him.
that they felt like they were going to fire the head coach, you should have started your rebuild then. Because
Right,
I'd rather
exactly.
start a rebuild with my interim coach who has 8 to 9 weeks experience. Get rid of all the vets. You're not really
I
getting rid
mean,
of
he
all
do
the
have
vets.
him playing hard though. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so at least he's got that going for him, but
I
he's not
mean,
getting
if
that
if
job.
Kansas City had one dude that can get open on a slant route, they lose that game.
That's
Like
true.
just one. If one dude can get open on an out route and not let the cornerback undercut everything that Patrick Mahomes is doing out there, they lose
Well, like
that
I said,
game.
they got shut out last week. I mean, a couple weeks ago.
Too.
So,
It's Minnesota.
yeah. So,
But they
I
played
mean, it's
hard, but
not
like Aiden O'Connell's not the answer.
no, I
That
mean,
ain't great.
he was a fifth round draft pick. So, I mean, you got to work that in. Everybody can't be
I
Brock
don't like his
Purdy.
mustache. His mustache says I'm not serious about how I look. I
you
need my
know,
quarterback to be pretty. I need you to be out there like really. I need you to be out there like you trying to run for class president. That's how I need my quarterback to look. I only need my quarterback to look like a guard.
right.
I need you out there, Jimmy Garoppolo style with the butt chin. You know what I mean? I need you out there like that. Like I need you sitting courtside at basketball games and the cheerleaders try to holler at you. I need you to be able to galvanize a room full of men, and most men follow tall,
Yeah.
handsome dudes. People can argue that fact all you want, but every president of the United States, with the exception of like two, maybe three, I think Taft might have been 5'8", and uh Theodore Roosevelt might have been 5'8" or 5'9", but for the most part, they've been 6 foot plus. Obama, Trump, Biden, Washington, Van Buren, FDR, they've all been tall. People are known to follow tall, handsome dudes, especially even other men. I need my quarterback to be one of those guys that people can follow. He's not one of them, and they're probably gonna get rid of him. That's why most of it. Look at the head coaches. Look at all the head coaches that get fired. Little
Short
dudes.
time.
Staley getting fired. Steve Wilkes constantly getting fired. Frank Wright's tall, but he's just not a good head coach.
About my
Uh,
man Fangio
Fangio,
and Vance Joseph.
tubby little guys, short guys, is out here just getting fired. Mike Tomlin's probably holding it down for the 5'11" crowd, but I mean, look at these guys getting benched. Like you're getting benched for just size. It's like a thing. I know it sounds like super childish and like superficial, but it is a fact of our the microcosm of our
Ain't nobody trying to play Matt
society.
Barkley.
People trying to like Josh Allen. Josh Allen being 6'4". Josh Allen and Kyler Murray play the same way.
Yeah, but one of them's supposed to, one's not.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's what it is. But yo, we will be back on Thursday, or I'm sorry, Friday, because
Oh, they try
sorry,
to sneak it
I'm
in.
going to the Alamo Bowl tomorrow to watch Oklahoma and Arizona. But we'll be back on Friday. We're gonna have your playoff picks. Mr. Rutley is going to tell you why Michigan don't have a chance in hell. You know, we're going to talk about NFL picks. Hey, you know,
Snowball
and then,
stands in the air fryer.
you know, stay tuned. We got more coming at you. Sports Reports is ordered. Like, review, subscribe, do all the good things. It's free. Be
Tell
a
your
good
grandma
person.
about us.
It's the holiday season. Appreciate y'all. You know what I'm saying? December's been a great month for the podcast. You
Absolutely. Applause to
know
all
what I'm
the
saying?
fans.
Yes, sir. You know what I'm
Mike
saying?
videos got like 3,000 views. It was up.
You know what I'm saying? Biggest movement since Dipset. You know what I'm saying? We out in here. You know what I'm saying? Mr. Logical run New Jersey. You know
Shout
what I'm
out
saying? So
Broken Windows Initiative. Make sure y'all look out for that.
yes, sir.
Nonprofit. Get back the hood.
Yes, sir. You know what I'm saying? We will be back. You know what I'm saying? Until then, peace and love. You know, enjoy your New Year's.
We love you.
We love you. Peace.